workplaces were essentially constructed for the male breadwinning model. And that's not what we see in today's workforce. So the workplace model has to change. And we go back to the pandemic. This sort of work from home forced us to think through what the new workplace could look for and how workplaces could work for women, how workplaces could work for men, how workplaces could work for all the intersectional identities you raised. I think that that's a huge part in figuring out how to close gender wage gaps by working with women and with others to figure out what is the ideal space and time for them to work in. And keeping in mind that the current structure was designed for the male breadwinner model, which is no longer the model in North America.
Yeah, I think Kadie brought up a good point that the market is already doing this through technology of allowing more sort of creative ways around work and helping employers rethink this. But I think that's the way to do it, because I think policy to impose this, we sort of get into sort of very unproductive ways of this. For instance, I mean, if we want to make sure people put limits on how many hours people work, I think we find that like, for instance, the 35-hour work week in France ends up lowering output. It sort of shrinks GDP. It lowers income, or you find all these sort of creative ways to get around it, which end up sort of as well sort of benefiting some workers, as not the other. So I agree that maybe, the original way was not the best way, but I don't think it's the scope of a sort of blunt policy instruments to change that when technology is already doing that job.